What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all their support. And if you want to join those fine folks if you want to join those fine folks and everybody else on Patreon and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That's less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet, sweet perks for your support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. For more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. This week's episode is brought to you by Jeff White's UX Storytelling Toolkit. Now, lots of people talk about the importance of storytelling for UX designers, but Jeff brings actionable clarity to the concept and he shows you exactly how to do it. He breaks down all those different real-world scenarios, like how to use different storytelling methods to present your work to clients and stakeholders, how to craft a better case study for your portfolio, and how to improve portfolio presentations for job interviews. And I love Jeff's approach to storytelling here. It's not your simple once upon a time kind of stuff. And since you're an amazing listener, and I know this course will help you out so much, I have partnered with Jeff to get everybody listening a 10% discount if you use the code BeyondUX when you check out. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/storytelling and use the code BeyondUX to get 10% off Jeff's storytelling course. So learn some incredible techniques to influence your team and advance your UX career. So I'm really excited about today's episode. I've got Cameron. Actually, Cameron, I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name. Is it Ridenour?
Ridenour.
Ridenour. I was totally off.
That's all right.
All right.
I've heard it all.
Sorry. So I'm really excited about today's episode. I've got Cameron Ridenour on. We're going to talk all about how to keep moving forward as a UX designer. You've probably run into this before where you just sort of get so many opinions, so many options, so many things coming at you. You don't know how to just keep the thing, whatever it is, moving forward. So we're going to talk about that today. So I'm really excited to have Cameron on the show. Where's your bio, Cameron? Here it is. All right. Cameron is co-founder and chief design officer of CoNote, an AI platform for collaborative research. And CoNote enables researchers, designers, and product builders to move easily from data to action. And before founding CoNote, Cameron spent over 10 years leading product design and design marketing campaigns across many different mediums. So Cameron, welcome to Beyond UX Design, man. I am so excited to have you on. How's it going?
That's going great. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Hell yeah, man. Awesome. Yeah. So one of the things you and I had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago, I don't remember what it was. And we were talking about this problem that we often see with new designers. And even honestly, let's face it, like senior designers too. They have this sort of just like, they can't move forward. There's so many things going on. And it's just sort of one of those things where like, I just don't know what to do. So before we hop into that though, tell everybody listening out there a little bit about you. You got an interesting backstory, founding this company. You seem like a very young dude. It's pretty impressive. So tell us all about you and how'd you end up where you are today?
My story around this and how I ended up in design is kind of, it feels like by like happenstance.
Uh-huh.
One of those.
There it is. We found it. We figured it out.
Like everyone else, I think my age, being like a millennial, I'm 35, where, I had to go to college, so my parents wanted me to do this, what I needed to do, but, I wasn't the best student, so I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I was super into video games. I mean, I still am, but at the time, I went to, college. I went to Anderson University in South Carolina, and I was doing a tour of the school, and they were asking, "Wait, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I don't know. I guess I like video games. Maybe I guess that." And then the person they were just like, "Oh, that's graphic design," which that is not what that is at all.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
So like I ended up in the art program. It worked out. Like I grew up drawing. In school I used to draw ads, like because I would like get skateboarding, from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Yeah, dude.
Got me into skateboarding.
Awesome.
And so like I would draw and make up my own shoe ads like in a notebook, and like so I was like doing that,
really cool.
but there was no one was able to tell me that that's the job, like that could be a job, and that's what I was doing. So like it all just like happened to really work out in that way that I ended up in that program. Um, Graduated from there. Then I started working at an advertising agency in Greenville, South Carolina. So I was there
I love
for
Greenville, man.
yeah, yeah. You're familiar?
Yeah, actually, I used to work for GE Power back in the day, and they have a big facility in Greenville. So I've been to Greenville a bunch, man. It's
Oh,
beautiful, the
okay.
downtown. That waterfall going down the
Oh
middle of
yeah,
town. It's
yeah.
beautiful.
Pulse
Yeah,
Park. Yeah. Well,
yeah, man.
they decided to make it like even better after I left.
Classic,
Right.
classic.
So I was at an advertising agency there for a few years, and then like from there, right, is doing the grunt work, the design, like emails, social media graphics. I get to work on websites. So that was kind of like also the beginning of where, starting to learn about like the things that I do, like what I love about design or what I love designing and like also what I don't love designing. And one of the like websites was something that I really enjoyed doing and working on those. So I really started to work on that then. And then from there, I moved on to another company called Delta Apparel. They own Salt Life, which I'm sure you are familiar with. A lot
Seen
of
stickers on
people,
the cars, yeah.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people up here in DC are not familiar with that. They're not living in
Is that a
Salt Life.
southern thing? I guess it's a
Yeah.
southern thing. Salt life just is everywhere, man. Yeah.
So
I
they
guess you
own
got to be
Salt
by
Life.
the coast to get it, right? If you're not by
Right,
like the
right.
coast, yeah.
Rarely do I see a Salt Life sticker up here, but when I do, I'm like,
There you go, man. I love it.
so they own them, Sophie. So like Sophie shorts, they like roll the top, looks like the cheerleading shorts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so for them, I did a lot of like work on their marketing website, e-commerce site, also email marketing for them, social media, just a lot of that. So a lot of my career and early career was a lot of advertising and marketing. And then from there, I moved on to another ad agency here in DC called Brilliant. And there, it was more of the, it was, I just became like, I just do whatever needs to get done. Right. It's just like that
Yeah.
mentality, especially like at a small agency, right? Where you're trying to get, the work that you're getting, probably like doing this thing, you're like, man, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, how do I do
Seriously.
this thing?
Nobody's there to
Um,
support me, right? Other small
yeah.
agencies, you just sort of, yeah, do or die. Sink or swim.
Um, so doing that. I did that for like 5 years or so. And while I was there, I started to do more on the product design side. While I was working with one of our clients, they created a software that helped lenders with staying within compliance. So it would like make sure that like redlining, making sure that's not happening, and like seeing where they're lending to make sure that they're all lending fairly. So it helps them know, excuse me, it helps them know what they're doing, so that when the banks come, or the I guess I can't remember what the federal agency is for banks, but like when they come in, they're like, hey, what are you guys doing, like knock knock knock, like let's take a look at all your stuff. They have it all like right there to give. And that was one of those things where it was already kind of, you know it was a software that had been designed in like the early 2000s, so you can imagine how that looked. And it was also designed by developers, which is like another thing. So I have a lot of experience with like that, how to navigate that. And then like how do you
Yeah.
build out like
That's
a
that's
step
the life,
process
baby.
from
That's the
getting
life.
something that looks like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Then from there I moved on to another company called Data Society. And I was doing only product design. We were working on a product there that was meant to help students and employees at companies like gain skills, so that they could see like a tree of like where they are, where they want to go, to see the path. Because sometimes it's really hard to understand. If you're like, I want to learn machine learning, but I don't know where to begin. This is meant to help with that, so
Hmm.
you can figure out that process and that path. That, and then of course through them, like did some services projects. So I worked a similar thing on a government project that was also the same thing, like where it was
Right.
designed by developers
Yeah.
12 years ago.
Usually anything
And
anything related to the government, is generally going to be developers are going to have like an outsized role, oversized
yeah,
role
yeah.
than what they probably
And I
should.
also want to say up front too, like this is not even me talking trash on developers. Like I love my
Oh yeah, love
developers,
him.
like people we have, love
Absolutely,
them, but
dude.
it's just they're very much, it's just like, well, you told me to do this thing. And, like, it does the thing you told me to do. And it's like, but I
Yeah.
have to click like 8 things to do that. And it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, no, that wasn't in the acceptance criteria. That's the problem.
Right. Well, it doesn't. And then from there, here I am at CoNote. And, what we're doing is what you said. I'm not going to say it again. Exactly what we do. But,
Yeah.
we're helping researchers find insights faster.
That's awesome.
So I'm the lead designer on that. Right now, it's just me, the designer. So from top to bottom, which is also a really cool experience.
Yeah,
And I think, this long journey of mine where I've had to just learn to do things on my, like, it's definitely helped for where I am now, because it's just me.
Yeah,
Like it
absolutely,
prepped me for this moment.
Yeah. So, well, this is interesting because I think this ties perfectly into our topic of conversation today, which is this need to move forward. And I imagine in your role, even as like the sole designer, even with all the experience that you've got, it's still probably hard, I think, probably to be able to make a decision quickly and just make sure this project, this product, feature, whatever it is moving forward. And regardless of what that bottleneck is, or regardless of what that speed hump is, how do we get to the next step? How do we keep moving forward so we can do whatever it is that we need to do? And I think a lot of designers, and we talked about this in the intro, but a lot of designers, young, even old designers, senior designers, I think still run into this issue, this problem where, they get stuck for whatever reason. And, there's memes all over the internet, like, I'll update my portfolio next week, or, and it's just like 2024 goals, 2023 goals, scratch it out, 2024 goals. There's like this thing, it's like I don't know, it's like a meme. It's become so predominant in the industry. So I want to talk a little bit about that. In your experience, tell me a little bit about some of the things like you've noticed junior designers do, or other designers even, getting stuck in places, and some experiences you've had with that.
Yeah. So like I think getting stuck on, specifically like portfolio, right? Like updating that, or waiting until it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
One of the like most valuable things I remember, it stuck with me. It was one of the professors I had at my college. He told us, it was a classmate of mine, he was about to graduate. I was a junior, and he was putting together his portfolio, and he was like really worried about. He was just like I feel like it needs this, like it needs that, like I got to find a job. Of course, at the time for him it was 2009, so that was a whole other thing. But
That was a rough time.
um, and then he was like, well, what if it says this? Like, what, like, they won't hire me. And then it was just like, so, it's kind of just
Right.
like
Right.
what, what would that mean, Because and kind
Yeah.
of what he was saying in that, like, I got was, if like, don't work for a place that doesn't see you for you also, because that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be a good fit anyways. Like, now I'm not saying put
Right.
in like the least amount of effort into your portfolio. Like, that's not what I mean. But like,
Right.
if you think of something that whatever it's you, and you're just like, I don't know, this is funny, or like, to me this is like really cool, then like do that, right? That will only help you find the people that you're meant to be with and meant to like work with. Um,
Yeah. Now,
so I think that's
the other interesting thing too there is that, like, I don't get this portfolio done, and then what if they don't hire me? It's like, so, but like, if you don't do it and you don't finish it, the outcome is the same. If you
right.
don't like get not even finished, because let's face it, let's be honest, like none of this is ever done. It's never perfect, right? It's
Yeah.
never done. We're never going to be completely happy with it. But at a certain point, you have to say it's good enough for right now. If I don't send this to someone, I still won't get the job. Like, I
Yes.
will 100% not get the job. If I send it to them and they don't like it, there's a chance I won't get the job. But if I don't finish it and don't send it to them, I will definitely not get this job. So I
Right.
love that, like, that little bit of just like tough love. Yeah. So what? So
Right.
what? It's not done. So what? I
Yeah.
love that.
It'll be okay. Yeah. I think everything, like, and that's a good point too, where anything that I'm working on is never finished, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
that, right? It's not, nothing will ever be perfect. There will always be something that you can improve on, even with like work that, like, I've done in the past. Like, I'm sure I could look at it now and like, I would be like, well, I probably would have done this differently. Like, I don't like how this type
Right.
hierarchy is like out of whack. I don't, like, what was I thinking, But that, but also like I wouldn't be here today without having made that then. So,
Yep. Yep.
it's like I don't want to be like, because it's easy to be like, perfection is like like that saying, like the enemy
Yeah.
of
Don't let
everything.
perfection get in the way of the
Yeah.
good enough, or in the way of progress. Or I've actually, this is funny because this actually ties directly in this conversation. One of the things I used to say, don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. And
Yeah.
I don't like that phrasing of it because it implies good enough is good, or good enough is better. And it's not good enough. It's don't let, I think the way we should say it is, don't let perfect get in the way of progress, you
Yeah.
know? And I like that too because it's two P's and it's got a little bit of alliteration or whatever. So, don't let perfect get in the way of progress. It's like, it's this idea again of moving forward. If you're just so focused on waiting for something to be perfect, it stays still, right?
Hmm.
You have a million ideas, a million iterations. You just keep changing and changing and changing. And you're just you're stuck in a little loading loop or something. You know what I mean? And so but you, like, how do you move forward? What's the next step? How do I finish this, or get this to a point where I can say, I'm not going to keep working on it anymore, or not going to keep working on this part anymore. I'm going to work on something new this time. Working for yourself, I'm curious, especially in kind of your scenario here where you're the lead designer, the only designer. How do you get to a point where you say, I've got to just now stop and do something new, or change the next project or whatever? Do you have a framework or a method or some kind of way to get your head in that spot?
Yeah. I think that, well, I have my acceptance criteria and I just meet it.
That's it.
No, but I think that there isn't a rule or a science to it for me. I think I feel it. You know how sometimes when you put
That's hard,
together a
yeah.
design where you're like in that process, where you're like in that whole, like you're in agony, right? The agony of the design process, where you're trying to find it. You don't know what it is, but you're like on your way. But then of course you're just like, I'm never gonna find it. Like this is like everything I'm doing is awful. But then like you find it, and then it just
Mm-hmm.
feels right. So I think it's that. That's when I know where I'm like this. But then sometimes it's also has to be good enough. Especially
Yeah.
like in our like we have to move fast and I'm on deadlines too. And I understand too like a lot of, I haven't really talked about that. Like how do you get past this while on a deadline? Just kind of like talking as if time is like infinite. But
Right. Yeah.
sometimes it is just like this works and I know that I'll have to come back to it. Sometimes like I
Right.
just have to live with that. But it needs to work, right? Especially like with like the product, right? Like that's a usability thing. If if a user can't do the thing that they need to do, then it's bad, right? But
Right.
as long as I can get it to where it's clear enough,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like I'm gonna miss stuff. I'm human. Like we have people that are going through this and looking at it behind me and all that too, but like we're all gonna miss stuff. There's gonna be things that pop up. There's gonna be like a user's gonna come in here and be like, why didn't they think of this? What were they thinking? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
Yeah.
I think it's
Now
just you
that's
gotta be
actually,
okay with that.
yeah, you mentioned something, and I think this is maybe a good point to sort of talk about this. But the idea there is, metrics or outcomes or ways to analyze and measure whether or not the thing that we are doing is meeting that, whatever that outcome was. And in the case of UX, I think we often talk about how there's a science to what we do, right? There's, we have hypotheses, we have things we think will improve a certain thing. We want to run experiments and we want to test them. And this is why, often researchers talk about scientific rigor and having rigorous research and things like that. And so in this case, though, I think, as a UX designer, if you don't have a whole UX research team or anything like that, I think it's really important to kind of take a step back and think about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it and the outcomes that you're trying to get from it. So if we think about in terms of a portfolio, the point there, I want to get a job. And so in order to get a job, I need to have interviews. In order to get interviews, I need to meet with people. I need to have phone screens and get, emails from recruiters or have conversations. And so, treat that like an experiment. So in the case of your portfolio, if you're feeling stuck, the outcome is a certain thing and you can figure out what that is. And you say, I'm going to send my resume, my portfolio out. If I'm not getting the feedback that I want, clearly something needs a change. And so you're like, all right, well, I had this first iteration. It wasn't good enough. So now let me go back and fix it based on whatever, problem I think is causing whatever issue I'm seeing. And so like treating it like kind of an experiment, right? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of something like, we don't really often think about our portfolios and our career in the same way that we think about a UX project for work, but there's not that much different in how we approach it. I have an outcome. I have some options. I can do one thing or another. I could treat it like an experiment and try some things and see if what I'm doing is heading in that direction. Those KPIs or whatever it is that I'm tracking in that right direction. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I just kind of thought about that. I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
Yeah, I didn't know what UX was when, I'm sure, like, I'm absolutely sure that it was a thing, but to me, I don't remember it being a defined thing when I was in college, or like when I was really into like design stuff, back then. So a lot of this stuff I just kind of had to like learn as I went along. But like, fortunately, the professors that I had, and that's what I mean is like, I feel very fortunate for like where I ended up and where I am. Of course there's work and hard work that goes along with that too. But like, I definitely recognize that the professors I had, the way that they taught us the like process of design of
Right.
like art is very much aligned with the way that you, like what you just said. Like,
Yeah,
it's about
absolutely.
like, what's that outcome, 'cause- and marketing is like that, but where it's like, what is the message I need to craft to reach the audience that I'm trying to reach, right? Who are my user personas? I don't like, who are the people that I want to buy my product? What is the right messaging to craft the messaging that will resonate with them to convert them or to get them to like, right, click through my product to use it, right? It's all very much a part of the same thing. Like, what that taught me though too is that I think all of this, anything that is designed is connected by that for me,
Yeah,
like no
man.
matter what it is, like a chair, right? You can apply the exact same process to like
Yeah,
making a chair, right? A
absolutely.
building, music, if you're creating a song, a movie, right? Like it's all connected in that way. And I think that, for me, that helps me like, 'cause I know that where I can apply all these different principles to no matter what I'm doing, which has helped me when I'm like, I've had to do like a bunch of different stuff, like experience design. I had to do that one time. Like, I'd never done it before.
Yeah, like
But I had to
outdoor
do.
kind of, not outdoor, but spatial, like physical space design kind of
Yeah,
experiential
it was
stuff.
for the
Yeah.
ACL 100 ACLU 100 tour, and it was like a storage container. So I had to like design the inside of what that looked like, and then
Oh, that's so cool.
what's the theme of what that
Yeah,
container
yeah,
is
yeah.
about, and then like what's the experience of walking through that? What do I want them to feel, right? And you can apply all these same principles to that. So I think that, I'm also like because I didn't go to school for UX, or the other thing too is that I don't know all of the exact terminologies of things, but like I understand the
Right.
process.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's interesting too, I'm like, as you're kind of talking, some things I'm kind of thinking about in my head, you made me think about, your background in advertising is interesting. And I've got a background in advertising as well. And you would know this, but I think a lot of UX designers coming up that have never worked in advertising would know about a design brief. When you sign a contract with a client, you agree to this design brief, and that specs out essentially what the outcomes will be, what the look and feel of the thing, what the thing's going to achieve, and all that stuff. And it's funny because when you mentioned, designing on your own, and you said, I asked you about like, how do you know when to stop and move on? You said, well, I'm just know like whatever it is I got to do. And what's interesting is like, I wonder if in your head you have this idea of like what that brief would be or should be for a feature or something, or for your portfolio, or whatever it is that if you're out there and you're stuck on something, having that idea in your head of what is good enough, and not good enough, but what meets that brief. I don't want to say acceptance criteria because it's very specific to like a user story, but
Yeah.
what meets that listing of things that have to meet in order to be done, quote unquote done. And I feel like if that's something like people started to try to do, maybe they would get to a point and kind of see, well, my portfolio, I'm not super happy with it. It's not perfect. but it does do these things and it does these other things, and you can get this and you can get that, and it tells the story and it does blah blah blah, whatever it is. It meets the brief.
Yeah.
You can't tell me you're not going to pay me because it meets the brief. Like, look, it does everything in the brief said. This is, you agree to this, I agree to this, boom, done. Pay me.
That
Obviously portfolio is a little different, but yeah, yeah. So, I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of interesting. I just kind of thought of that. I don't know if you got any insights there or something to add to that, but that was kind of something I was just sort of
Yeah,
throwing around my
that
head.
I hadn't considered that, but I think that you're closer to the truth. That yeah, I yeah, I mean that because I think about that's the other thing too. I think the advantage of having an advertising background and moving into UX is that I'm not only thinking about is this usable or
Mm-hmm.
easy to use. Is this going to convert someone? And am
Mm-hmm.
I setting up even on the page, right? How am I guiding them to get them to do what I want, which is like to convert ultimately, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's a marketing thing, an advertising thing, right? To
Yeah.
yeah, like yeah, think like how does this page make them feel, right? Like
Yeah.
all of that stuff is wrapped up in right, like good marketing. How does it make you feel? Does it like are we hitting those right, you know, those
Yeah, dude.
points?
So I just made this connection too, though. Like this list of things we were kind of talking about before, where designers get stuck. They get stuck doing their portfolios. They get stuck doing
Mhm.
resumes. They get stuck job hunting. They get stuck in their career. And we often, I don't know anyone. I've never made this connection. I think you're this first time I've heard someone make this connection. But we're converting. We're trying to convert, right? And we're trying to convert and get an offer. We're trying to convert and get, you know, get a promotion or a raise
Mhm.
or whatever it is. And beyond just converting a user to buy the thing we're trying to design or the product we're selling or whatever, if we apply that to our own personal kind of lives, it's like I'm not super happy with my portfolio, but does it convert? Will it get
Mhm.
me the offer? Will it get me the interview? You know, and will it get me a raise? Is my current position or career helping convert to the next phase in my career? And I love that. I love that approach, man. I don't know. I never I never thought of that until like just now. I don't know if that we can coin that. You can coin that. You came up with it, not me.
You know what? It's for the taking for everyone. Whoever wants to coin it can coin it.
There you go.
I'll throw that.
So yeah, man. So that's something I want to talk about too. Is this idea again? Like we talk a little bit, dance around a little bit, but this idea of perfection. We mentioned like at a certain point, progress not good enough. Let's say progress.
Yeah.
Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. I want to talk a little bit more about this. I know we kind of talked a little bit about meeting the acceptance criteria, but is there something that we could maybe advice that we could offer some junior designers out there to think about this idea and keep from getting stuck?
Yeah. I need to plug my computer in.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, dude. No problem.
I was trying to wait for a good spot.
Yeah, no, it's perfect, dude. It's all good. Hey, dude,
Okay.
Linus, I am on a call, baby. I'm on a call. I'll be done in a little bit. Out.
What? What? It
It's
couldn't have been
perfect
more
timing, dude.
perfect.
Perfect
All
timing, huh? Look at that.
right. um.
All right, so
What?
we were talking about some actionable advice if you have any on how to like we could frame it around that brief, like come up with a brief in your head. Anyway, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Um. Actionable advice for a junior designer to not get stuck in perfection. It is really hard. It's really hard to not do that. Just up front.
It is.
I sometimes I get like hyper fixated on stuff where and then that's like I've had my co-founder have to come in to me to stop me. Like I still do it,
Yeah.
so I
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to sound like I'm not, I'm out here just doing it like everything feels right, like I absolutely obsess over little small details that ultimately don't matter. But sometimes, like, I think what it is that work on it, get it to where you're happy with it. And I think it's about taking a step back, um, sleep on it. I mean, that's huge. Like, if you're able to do that, I think for a portfolio, you can do that. I was like, I get like what is happening is I'm thinking about every other thing that's ever happened to me where I was like, sometimes the time limit is the time limit. And you're just like, well, I
Hmm.
guess I got to pump out this garbage because like, what else am I
I'm
supposed
at
to
where I'm at. Yeah. I got no more time.
do?
This is it.
Sometimes
Yeah.
that happens too.
Yeah.
Um, I think that it really is about finding what works for you. I think that the most basic things that you can do is like work on it, massage it, get the big pieces down.
Hmm.
Like, my professor would call it little tiny screwdriver work. If you could tell, I love my professors that I had.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
We
thing
talk
when you
about
can
that.
find that relationship, man. It's hard though, you know.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I
But he
agree.
would call it tiny screwdriver work. So that's the stuff you come in later and do, right? So like focus on, I think you just want to do it in like pieces, piecemeal, right? And then just keep working at it. Everything is always a work in progress, even when it's done. I mean, you may not go back to it, but if you were to go back to it, you could keep working at it. Yeah, I think having that mentality has helped me. Just, truthfully, it's just you just got to let it go. That's really it.
You just gotta let it go. I
You just
love
got to
that.
let it
Yeah.
go and just accept that like not everything that you're going to do is going to be perfect. Well, nothing ever will be perfect. It may be like the most badass thing you've ever done, right?
Yeah.
Or you're like super proud of it. But like I think back to that the shipping container, like the designing it for ACL, you like
Hmm.
that there were things that we could have done, but we were also restricted with that, like the design brief of the project, right? Where
Right.
the client also has their needs. Now this is shifting away from portfolio and into like actual like
Yeah,
work.
that's fun.
But like sometimes the client has, here's the other thing, right? Sometimes the client will come to you and they'll be like, this has to have all of this information on it, right? Instead of being like the client's an idiot, they don't know
Yeah.
anything. What you should do is look at that and then come back to them with a suggestion to like make it better. Like it is as much a relationship with them as it is like it's as much their work as it is your work. So like I think it's, trying to find that medium. And that will also go a long way in finding that perfect, because now you're not like stuck in like I can't believe I have to do this like one pager that's like got way too much text on it. You just like, well, you know what you should do? Lay it out how they want it, and then lay it
Hmm.
out what perfect is to you, and then show them both, and then explain why
Hmm.
this is better for the outcome to get that convert right. Because
Right.
they want the same outcome you do. They want their whatever it is that they're building to reach an audience. They want it to resonate. They want all the
Yeah.
same stuff. So if you just talk to them like on that level, that will help.
Yeah. Well, that's just something like I think a lot of people kind of fail at miserably is empathizing with the stakeholders, empathizing with your team,
Mhm.
empathizing with, your, let's say if we're talking about portfolio and resume, your users who are hiring managers or recruiters. And when I think if you can really start to try to empathize with them, you make it a lot easier to one, not just sell what you're trying to convert, right? Or convert what you're trying to sell, but you make it a lot easier to get to a point in your head where you say, this is what they need. It's not perfect, but it is what they needed. It's
Mhm.
not what I like, but it is what they needed. And I think that to me is like another really great way to kind of get past that block, because it's not about you. Design is not about you. That's the difference
Mhm.
between, I think, like design and art, right? It's not
Yeah.
something that is intrinsically valuable to me. It is something that is useful for a thing to sell, you know? And I think that's one of the big differences between design and art. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people get attached to that thing as if
Mhm.
it's their little art project, it's their baby. But it's not. Just like you said, it's like you got to let go. And it's a lot easier to let go when you detach yourself from that thing as just something for someone else. It's something for a thing. If you don't like it, well, let's figure out how to get it so I can get paid, or let's figure out what to change so I can get a job, or let's figure out what I can change so I can get a promotion. It's sort of one of those things. I think a lot of people, they get attached to that thing they're making,
Yeah.
and they have a hard time letting go, I think.
And I do think that, because I also think that like that's a double edged sword with that too, right? Because then if you are detached from it completely, then how much do you care about it? And there, like, are you going to put, and then are you going to give it the love that it deserves, anyways? So like that can be. I was like trying to remember. I lost my point.
It's all right.
This is what it's like to be me.
I know, man. No, it's all good. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I gotta write. This is why I take notes while I'm talking because
Oh, listen,
I always forget stuff.
I thought that I was
Same way.
going to do that.
There you go.
Well, I thought I was going to do that. I
One of the
forgot
things
that
that
I had this.
it's all good. One of the things, and I think this is something I say quite a bit too, is advertising. I think is such a valuable background to have for a UX designer. One, because it teaches you how well you've got it or shows you how well you've got it when you get a job as a UX designer, because advertising is so miserable and stressful and short deadlines and things like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, one of the things that I think advertising helps with is that detachment from the work. Because in advertising, there's such quick turnaround times. You're constantly designing new things, which means you're constantly getting feedback. And you're constantly changing and evolving and iterating and constantly getting rejected. And I think it builds up that muscle, if you want to call it a muscle, that allows you to then, once you're a UX designer, not hold these things so close or be so attached to these things that you're designing. Because let's face it, in UX design, it's pretty long time cycles, right? I mean, maybe you do sprints, which is 2 weeks, but in advertising, it's literally hours. It's like a client will call you up at 2 p.m. on a Friday and be like, hey, we forgot we're supposed to send this thing to print on Monday. Can you finish this by 5 o'clock? And so when UX designers are like, oh my God, we only have a month to do this. I'm like, a month? Are you kidding?
Yeah,
I'd kill to have a month in advertising. So I think I know it's like one of those things like waiting tables. Like everybody should just do it for 3 years and appreciate what it'll make everybody like just so much nicer. I think across the board, just appreciate what they have.
I agree with that.
I don't know. It's just kind of something I've kind of noticed. I think with all my peers and colleagues who have done advertising first before getting into UX design, there's a certain grit that I think a lot of other UX, not to say other UX designers don't have the grit, but there's a certain level of grit that UX designers who are former advertising alums have, I feel like. And I don't know if this is something you've noticed or ever thought about, but it is something I've seen quite a bit.
Yeah, I have. I think that it's, forged in the flames of advertising.
Forged in the flames. That's exactly it, dude.
Yeah, I think that it helps. Well, it's kind of like that whole military thing where they got to like break you down and then build you back up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly.
Because you get out of design school and you've just got this giant ego, like everything, and you're like hot shit, and it was just like you're not, and they're just like, this is way bigger than you. There are decisions that are being made that you're just not gonna like, you're not gonna agree with, but you just have to do it, and that's just the way it is. And I think like learning that, it's like, right, letting go of your own perfections, and then also letting go of your own ego around your work, because feedback is not criticizing you as a person. I think sometimes that can be a difficult hurdle for some people. And
yes, exactly.
And like truthfully, I think, people want to work with someone who can take feedback. For me personally, I would rather hire someone that can take feedback and is easy to work with, that has maybe like is still growing into their design abilities, than someone who's already there, but like it's like anything that I say, it's like, well, I've already done that, like this is already better, meeting that resistance. Like I would rather work with someone that's way easier. I mean, I think that can apply to any job, but I think that is also something that a lot of designers and young designers need to hear, that like it's not an attack on you, it's just about trying to find the best possible work, like just to do the best work. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I want to also talk about too is, we talk about junior designers and portfolios and things like that. But something that I've seen, and I know you've seen this quite a bit, we talked about this a couple of weeks back, is this sort of laser focus on just learning tools and figuring out every little feature and mastering it without ever actually designing anything. Right? Like Figma comes to mind. There's a million plugins, there's a million features, they're always dropping new features, and it's like learning all these things is great and it's important. But at a certain point, you've got to move past the learning of a new feature and start doing and building and designing and completing, right? Or at the very least, moving to the next thing. So that idea of getting stuck and not moving forward when it comes to learning, especially on the tool side. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Tell me about your experience there and some things that you've noticed from, especially junior designers learning things like Figma and just constantly obsessing over tools and never actually doing anything.
Fortunately, I haven't run into. I have seen it, but when I was managing designers, when I was managing designers, it was an advertise, and like there was no time to just be like, let me like learn these like
Yeah.
plugins. I was like, we need this now.
Yep.
Like we got to work on this quick. Um, I think that you're better suited just using it in day to day. Like, and
hmm
then if you need to do something and you're struggling to figure out how to do it, then Google how to do that thing, and then you will learn how to
Yeah.
do that, like through a feature or a plugin. To me, I think that's the most effective way to learn it. Anyone can just, you know, thinking about like resumes that I can't remember, maybe I had said this before. That when I get a resume that says that someone is 74% good at Photoshop, I want to pull my hair out, or like that kind of thing. So also for the listeners, stop doing that. Just say you know how to use it. Like, because I'm just like,
Yeah.
so you're not good at it? Like, what does that mean? Because the other thing too is the rest of us don't know everything in and out. No, like
Right.
hardly anyone does. We just Google the
Yeah.
thing
We
that we
still
need to
Google.
do.
We
Yeah,
Google
right.
everything.
We
Yeah,
just Google the
exactly.
thing we need to do. So yeah, I think a lot of my knowledge, everything I know about, like, I mean, I know how to use Illustrator, Premiere, After Effects, like Photoshop, InDesign. Like, I've
Mhm.
learned how to use those over my career at different points because I had to learn it out of necessity. But I didn't
Right.
go in and with I was like, I got to watch 10 hours of videos to understand this in and
Yeah.
out. No, I just jumped in and Googled what I needed to
hmm
do and then just like worked through that like learning curve, especially with After Effects. My God. And then
Yeah. Oh God, After Effects is hard. Yeah.
like getting through that. And here's the thing, I'm not the best at that, but
hmm
I know enough to put together certain things, right? Of what I need to
hmm
do. Beyond that, I'll hire somebody, like at this point, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think it's more about that. Just learn these tools from working and doing them and then Googling what you need to know.
Yeah.
That's my perspective on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, same for me. I mean, one of the things that I like to tell people a lot is like, don't just learn a tool to learn a tool or a feature to learn, how to do the feature. Use Figma for an example. Variables is a new thing they just released, and everybody wanted to go learn and figure out variables. And like variables is cool. It's amazing. And I know for a fact of some people who have said, I've watched like hours of videos on how to use variables. I'm like, well, but did you do anything with it? Like, what have you done? And the thing is, like, when it comes to that, like, that's fine. And again, I don't want to say don't learn those things, but
Yeah.
to your point, what is the learning a variable going to do for me? Like, how can I use a Figma variable, and make my workflow faster? What am I doing now that is slow that could speed up if I were to learn how to use variables or use variables more efficiently? So, like for instance, if I'm creating a quick prototype, a scratch idea, exploring something, I probably don't necessarily variables is probably not going to really help me do anything that I wouldn't be able to do by just manually entering a spacing or a size or a font size or something. But if I'm, trying to create reusable components and design systems, or I've got a giant project with many pages on it, and it's got like 100 artboards or frames, and I want to make one update and change it across the board because I don't want to update 50 different pages. Are amazing there, right? So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like if you just understand one, what that feature is going to do for you,
Yes.
and then how might I apply it, and what am I doing now that could be useful, or what am I doing now that is slow that could be faster using this new tool? Auto layout is another example. Like, auto layout is amazing. I think it's really cool. A lot of people have a very hard time trying to figure out auto layout in Figma. And so, like, in that case, it's like, if you've got a whole bunch of screens and you've got a whole bunch of stuff that you want to make sure is consistent and lined up and all that stuff, like, and you're seeing that you have a problem, like stuff is out of order, stuff is out of place, you're moving things around quite a bit because you're getting feedback that things need to be changed. Auto layout's amazing. I can quickly take a row and reorder it or do whatever or add spacing between it and it's consistent. Then that's when you're like, well, auto layout would be helpful for me, But it's kind of one of those things, like just going and learning and spending hours learning auto layout without ever actually applying it is never going to help you do anything. And if anything, to your point, learning by doing is probably the single best way to learn anything. So if you have an actual use case that you're trying to apply and figure something out, that's the best way to learn something, instead of trying to go and figure out and master the thing before, you ever actually build something. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just my thought.
Yeah. And then I think too, like, what's also invaluable, maybe it's not talked about, like the amount that even I help young designers or, with like where they're struggling and then they show me or tell me what they're trying to do. And I'm like, well, I was like, let me show you how to do that faster, And then like
Yeah.
that's the other thing, like mentors or like your, other designers on your team, like ask for help or like talk about this thing you're trying to do. Someone may know how to do that faster. And then there it is, boom, and now you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times I think it just comes out of like I'm trying to do this thing, and this seems like this should be easier.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you're reaching that point is when you should Google it.
Yeah, exactly. Google it first before you ask somebody.
Yeah.
Google it
True,
first
true.
before you ask for help. And then
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
can't figure it out, then you ask for help. But yeah, having, and this is, again, leads to, I think, some other stuff that, that I think a lot of people kind of don't necessarily think about. Oh, shit, what was I going to say? God damn it. I just totally lost it.
Just
what was I
like
going to say? Fuck. Damn it. I didn't write it down. See, that's a problem. I didn't write it down.
This time I did
Oh
write
man,
down.
I feel like I had like a really insightful thing I was just about to say too, and just went. I like looked at the clock and I was like, and then as soon as I looked at the clock, I was like, shit, I just totally forgot.
I'll say because what I was talking about, dude, my brain is. I was like, I learned I've got ADHD, so like I've learned this.
Me
It's
too.
like,
I would say my
yeah, it's exploit like I learned that like a year ago, and now my whole I was like everything just came crashing down.
Yeah. Oh man. Damn it! What was I gonna say? I'm gonna think of it like after we get off the call. Fuck.
Well, I was talking about how what we were saying. Google it first about asking mentors for help or other people on the team. If you're struggling, you don't know.
Oh, I remember what it was. Let's see if I can transition this. I'll have to edit this out. But I think something that a lot of people tend to overlook is that idea of community. And, you mentioned like going out and talking to your coworkers or your boss or mentors if you have one, but not everybody's got that, that privilege, I guess, if you want to call it that, of having that. And that's why I think like community is so important. If you go on social media and you build a community on LinkedIn or Twitter, wherever, or, you go and join Slack communities or something like that, but having a network you can reach out to instead of just going randomly and posting on, Stack Overflow or the equivalent for the, design community and asking a question, random people. It's a lot easier, I think, quicker, probably better to have a conversation where you can go back and forth, hop on a Zoom call or meet, whatever, and, just be able to kind of like chat. But it's hard to do that when you don't have that community. And I think that's like really important for junior designers, especially, is to just build a community. It's great for networking, but it's also great for learning. And I think that's something a lot of people tend to overlook, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I like the majority, I can say designers on the whole, we're all like very friendly. We want to help each other, but I mean, I think humans in general want to help each other, but like reach out to people on LinkedIn. Exactly what you're saying. Like the thing is, this like goes back to the whole thing is like, well, what if they don't like? So what? Then that's, this the same level as not sending the message, right? If they don't respond, then they don't respond. Then you can ask someone else. Like, reach out to, I remember Jessica Hish, like she, like people in my class or like a couple like reached out to her and she responded. Like Debbie Millman, like is another one that like, I mean, these are like big like designers, like they will reach out, even them, right? So like everyone wants to help. Like designers want to help each other, and we all want to help each other's work be as good as it can be and be better. So yeah, absolutely, reach out to people.
That is so true.
You know what? That's
designers.
That's listeners' homework. I want everyone to reach out to a designer this week on LinkedIn or whatever.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny because like designers in general, we love to talk about our work. We love to talk about ourselves. We love to talk about our work. And so many junior designers are like, oh, I can't reach out to them. They'll never respond. It's like what those people, those bigger names don't want is just someone to like ask them for help. But they love to have conversations, they love to talk shop. They love to talk through things. It's like, you don't even, hey, can you help me get a job? Or hey, can you help me figure this out? It's like, hey, I really love this thing and blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to do some cool stuff, and you start a conversation, and then it becomes a relationship, and you're asking a friend for help, So like, I think that's something a lot of people tend to do, is like just ask for help or ask for something when they reach out. But designers love to talk about themselves. Take advantage of that.
Yeah,
Take advantage of the fact that we love to talk about our work.
right. I mean, especially you reminded me of like I did this. I reached out to John Contino. I just talking about like hardcore and like hate breed.
Mm-hmm.
We're just talking about hardcore music. I mean, like it's like it's like
Yep.
we are here, especially if you
Yeah.
have like a common interest like that. Like, yeah, he gave me great suggestions of like bands to listen to. Got into Incendiary because of him and like that
Yeah.
first hate breed record. So
I love that. Yeah, and what the beautiful thing about that is, like, you're building a meaningful, genuine relationship. It's
mhm,
not based on like, you getting something from him or
right,
whatever. And so, in the future, those are the kinds of relationships where, in the future, when I don't know, maybe this won't happen, but like, I need a job, I need this, I need
right.
something, like asking someone for help, that is a genuine relationship and a genuine connection, that isn't just there because you need something, but they're actually there to help you, and they're more willing to help, and you're building
Mhm,
like a safety net, going well beyond like all the stuff we're talking about today for the topic. This is just like networking and the beauty of networking in general.
yeah.
But having that safety net and those people around that like are there to, because they want to help you, because they like you. They
Mhm,
genuinely like you, because you've been like a great friend and shoulder or ear to listen to, things like that. So I love that, man. That's awesome. It's good stuff.
yeah. I think the only thing just to add to that is going to networking events. So I live in DC. I think I may have
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that earlier. And if anyone has ever been to DC or lived in DC, then they know what I mean when I'm like going to networking in DC is like it can be, because it's very much a transactional thing. Even just meeting people in public here, it's like a transactional thing where it's like, well, what can you do for me? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that I approach all this stuff and get around that, is I just show up. I show up as me, and I'm there to like, I mean, more or less just there to like make friends, really. That
Yeah,
makes it so
that's it,
much
dude.
easier. If you just show up with the like mindset where like I'm just gonna show up and be me and just like be friendly, make friends, like that goes way farther than just being like I have to
Yeah.
go and I have to talk to this person about this thing because I need them to buy my deal, but then I have to get right. You get into this whole thing. You just show up, talk about your thing, listen to them, talk about other stuff. Sometimes I like to ask like a really like weird questions like, so what are you into?
Yeah,
Sometimes you do that
exactly. Yeah.
because then it also like it will disarm them to get out of this whole like weird headspace.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was like,
I
let's
love
talk
that.
about something that's not work related. Like, what are
Yeah.
you, the individual, into? What do you like?
Yeah, I
Maybe there's
know.
a common
One thing
interest.
I hate the most at like networking events is when someone's like, "What do you do?" It's like, what do I do? I don't
I'm
know.
just hanging
What do
out.
you do? Like, I don't just like, what do I do? I have a freaking job and I get paid because I hate, I hate my job and I get paid. Like, that's what I do.
Right, like the rest of
It's
us.
just like, I hate those questions. But you're right. Like like, that's what I love. Like the best networking events I've ever been to and met people, like really cool stuff. It's like, what are you into? It's like a same job. Yeah. What are you into? Like, I can take that anywhere I want to take that. I'm
Right.
into this, I'm into that, I'm into Legos, whatever, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
I love that approach because when you go to networking events and treat them like networking events, that's when people dread them. But when you go to networking events and you're there to just be a genuine person and meet people and just hang out and make connections and get to know people, versus other business things or try to sell things, I
Right.
think that's, and it's memorable. People remember that because that's different, because most people don't go to network events to do that.
Right. Right.
Most people go, oh, here's my business card. Oh, I make a referral.
Right.
I think that's something like people actually want to see more of. So anyway, you heard it here first, y'all. Heard it here first. All right, Cameron. So we've had you for a little bit. Before we get out of here, any closing thoughts? Anything that you want to make sure all those listeners, some of those junior designers, career shifters, know about getting stuck and moving forward, that you want to say we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Think here. I think that, as I said earlier, this is not, it's easier said than done. And I
Yeah.
know that. But I think the best, if you can just start to try to let go of, of trying to get that perfection, find that, wait, here's the thing, you'll find it. That is also the other thing, right? You just may not see it now because you're just not there and you're still building your skills, especially, when at that level. Because I like now 24-year-old me couldn't do what I'm doing now at the same level. And it's not because like he's not capable. It's just like he doesn't have the experience and like
the wisdom.
Just doesn't know everything or not know everything, but
Sure.
doesn't know everything that I know right now. And here's the other thing. Like 35-year-old me now isn't going to be as good as 45-year-old me then, right?
Yep.
In different ways. Maybe I'll lose like, I'll just be doing things, right now. I'll be the one using variables still where everyone else has moved on. I was like, nah, but it works.
Yeah. Stick with
But,
what works.
you'll just take those experiences that you're getting now, work through them. You're always learning. And that's all you can do.
I love it. That's some good advice. All right, man. Cool. So we've got a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we do that, give yourself a little plug. Tell us about CoNote and all the stuff you're doing over there, and give CoNote a little shout out. Let us know how we can find CoNote and find you and all that stuff as well.
So CoNote is an AI research tool. So what it's meant to do is it will take all of your interviews, anything that you've recorded with a call, video, and audio. It'll synthesize those down and then find all the action items from like multiple interviews. So what we're trying to do is help speed up that process, right? How do we help research get into a more agile like style that is currently, not like available within like, because devs got their thing, design has their thing. And a lot of times research, it takes a lot, it's a lot of work. So we're working on a tool that like helps researchers to try to get them, from point A to B a lot faster, get you 80% of the way there and help you find all those good little juicy snippets to pull out to convince stakeholders that you are right and they are wrong.
Seriously. Awesome, dude. All right, man. Cool. We'll check out CoNote. Yeah, go ahead.
CoNote.ai. Whoa. Look, I'm a terrible promoter. Jesus. All right. Come see us at CoNote.ai.
There you go. Right on.
And then
awesome,
also
find
me on LinkedIn. I am a designer that will respond.
Right on. There you go.
If
That's
you're
your
looking
homework.
for someone, Cameron Ridenour on LinkedIn.
Right on. Awesome, dude. All right, man. Cool. So we've got a few questions that we like to ask all our guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First one up, what is your favorite non-design book?
So I am not a huge reader, but what I will say, my favorite movie is Terminator 2.
Ooh, I love it, dude. T2. You why T2 over T1 or T3 or 4 or 5 or all the other ones that they got?
Yeah, right. Out of all it's just T1 and T2 to me at this point.
Anything after Terminator 2 is not worth watching.
Man, it's a perfect movie. I don't know, James Cameron, man. He's just he gets it. Especially that era, James Cameron. Oh, maybe it's the name too. It's not my name. I don't know.
So here's a little. Oh, that's true. Yeah, Cameron. I get it. I see what you did there. Here's a little fun fact about me. I used to live down in New Orleans. We had this. I lived in this neighborhood called Algiers Point, and I had the second floor right on the river, dude. Right on the river. Algiers Point, beautiful neighborhood. If you've never been there, it's across the river from the cathedral and French Quarter and all that stuff. You actually see it from the river. Anyway, I had this big, beautiful house. We had the top floor. The place was a total shithole. It was like a total shithole, but it was this big, beautiful, like French Quarter looking house. We had the second big wraparound balcony, second floor wraparound balcony with the iron and all that stuff. And we'd hang out and we could see the French Quarter from our balcony and all that shit. Anyway, I moved out and somebody bought it, renovated it. They renovated the whole house. The house was split up into apartments, renovated it back to a single family house. Turns out Linda Hamilton bought that house. So Linda Hamilton, if anyone doesn't know, obviously, from Terminator.
So
anyway, Linda Hamilton bought it. Yeah, Sarah Connor, exactly. And so Linda Hamilton bought it. We ended up moving out, and then a few years later, my wife and I, went back to the neighborhood, bought a house, and we would see Linda Hamilton all the time. This little bar right down the street, like a block from that old house. It was like 2-3 blocks from our house, our new house. Anyway, Linda Hamilton hanging out there all the time, and we'd always run into Linda Hamilton, and
I've
we used
been
to call
losing
her
my
Aunt
mind.
Linda. And my kids, she would like talk to my kids. She had these two beautiful dogs. She'd always be walking her dogs and stuff. And anyway, she's still there. Beautiful house, man. Right on the river down there in Algiers Point, Linda Hamilton.
That's amazing.
Fun story.
I would keep my cool, but internally I'd be losing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's crazy because she's very short. She's not really tall, and you know you can kind of tell, I guess, from Terminator when she's standing next to like Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff. But you don't like it's like funny. You just like picture them as like Sarah Connor in the
Like
'90s too,
larger
which
than
is
life.
funny. It's
Yeah,
just like
like the badass. Like
yeah, exactly. And she's still like she's in great shape and stuff. For being I guess I don't know. She's got to be in her
I mean,
like
she's just doing
70s, I
pull-ups
guess.
on an upturned
Yeah,
bed.
dude, exactly. So anyway, yeah, Linda Helm, that's a fun story. Aunt Linda, that's my kids always called her Aunt Linda. All right, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
I guess it's not. See, oh, you know what? I started Blowback has been one that I've really enjoyed lately. It's about the first season was about the Iraq War and what led up to that.
Oh wow,
So it
okay.
was really interesting for me to go back and revisit that because I was like 10, when all of that started, or 11, like when all that stuff started happening.
First
And then
Gulf
to get
War,
the
yeah,
history of it, the lead up to it. So, really
yeah.
cool podcast. Yeah,
All
that one's
right,
been
I have
great.
to check out Blowback. Never heard of it. All right, awesome, man. What is your favorite meal? This could be something you've cooked, your grandma cooked, something you had at a restaurant somewhere. Doesn't matter.
I
Favorite
mean,
meal, best thing you've ever put in your mouth. That was
oh,
food.
it would probably, yeah, I mean, it'd probably be like the family dinners from when I was a kid. I remember, yeah, with like the baked beans, fried chicken, collard greens,
Baked beans, fried chicken.
mashed
Hell yeah.
potatoes. Yeah, I mean, like all that stuff. Yeah, in my grandma's basement.
I love it, dude. In your grandma's basement. I love it, dude.
Mhm.
You can't beat like grandma's fried chicken, man. I bet that's got to be
Yeah,
pretty
right.
good down in South Carolina. I love it. All right, what is your favorite vacation spot?
Man, like I like going to new places. So I typically try to do that. I think that like the US, like continental US, we have amazing places to go see. And I
Yeah.
wish more people would go and see like the rest of our country. Like that when I the first time I like went out west, we did this me and my buddy, we call it our dude's rock trip. We do it every year. It's just me and him.
Hmm.
And we like drove from Denver to Lake Tahoe all the way down to like Death Valley to Vegas and then back. So it was like a
Oh,
2,000-mile
nice.
loop.
Yeah.
But like that is one of my favorite trips that I've ever done. Because I just to me, there's just something about I don't know being the nothing out there. I don't know. It's just like
Yeah.
there's just something about it. Maybe it's just because I grew up over here on the East Coast where there's just like people all the time everywhere. Like even in like rural like South Carolina, there's still people around. You go out there and there's like no one. Like no houses, nothing for like an hour and a half of driving.
Yeah, dude, that's funny. Yeah, it's so big. It's like I think like
Yeah.
people from the States they just assume like oh I got to go to Europe or the Caribbean or South America, Central America,
Which is
wherever. And
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like there's so much crap here. There really is. I was actually talking to somebody not long ago because I talk to a lot of people in Europe and stuff for the podcast, and like I was like, oh yeah, you guys in Europe, you have so much cool things. Like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, you got so much cool stuff. Like, all like everything you just mentioned. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm like, yeah, but it's so far. Like at
Right.
least
That's the
Europe is
thing.
just condensed. It's like everything is like I could take a
Right.
train in a day and be anywhere. Like if I want to go to like Yosemite National Park, that's like days of driving. It's like 1,000. It's
Right.
almost as expensive as flying to Europe.
Right.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Um,
yeah, you're right, man. There's so much cool stuff here.
yeah. I think that a lot of like the art too, like that I love, like one of my favorites, Caspar David Friedrich. He's I can't remember what era. I was an art history minor. I should know this. Ooh. He was like one of them. But his paintings are about like the insignificance of man against like the world and like nature. And I think like being out there, like it feels like that, and it's like it's just awe inspiring to just be out there, like just standing out in like some like in Utah where you're just driving down each step and you're just like, stop for a break or something. You're just standing there and it's just like these giant, just nothing. And you're just like this big.
Yeah. That's cool, man. I love that. Yeah, and some of those like national park, it's just like there's like Grand Canyon is a good example of just
I
like
haven't been to
amazing
that one.
stuff around here. Dude, it's so big. Like you look at it on a picture and you're like, wow, that's big. But like until you stand on the rim and look down and across and just like and you look around, you turn around and you're like, that's like flat here and everything's flat. And then I look here and I'm like this giant hole in the ground. It's so big. It's so
Yeah,
big and you're so tiny. You're just this little nothing. And anyway, it's the reason why they call it grand. It is very grand. It's a very, very fitting name.
the name fits.
All right, man. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Oh, easy. Pencil and paper. I mean,
I love when people say that. Pencil
I
paper.
mean
That's
that's
it,
the
baby.
class. I mean, that should be it. I tell every designer that I've ever always I like when you're like I give them a project, I want to
Mm-hmm.
see sketches first.
I love it.
Do
Yeah.
not start on the computer because
Yeah.
that you know what you want to talk about a way of getting stuck. That's how you get stuck. If you go straight to the
Yeah.
computer, you're gonna get stuck.
Oh, I love
Like
that. That's a good answer.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to Julia DeBari not long ago, and she's had a great insight. She's like, if you can do it on pencil and paper, you can do it on anything. So like focus on that, figure it out, and then you figure that out, then you can move on to making it pretty on a computer. But pencil
yeah,
and paper, boom,
yeah,
love it.
and it doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to look nice. That's the other thing that like sometimes you got to get through. Where they're like, I can't draw. It doesn't matter. Just do shapes. You know what the shapes mean. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I love it. All right, man. Cool. Cameron, well, that's it. That's all we got for today, man. Before we get out of here, real quick, give yourself one more plug. Let us know about CoNote and where we can find you and all that stuff.
Yeah. Find us at CoNote.ai. This time I nailed it.
There you go. It's perfect. Boom. Mic drop.
uh,
We're done. That's it. Cool.
yeah, and then find
All
me on
right.
LinkedIn.
Right on. All right, cool. And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com for the show notes. If you haven't seen them, that's where they'll be. Cameron, thanks so much for joining us today, man. I'm really excited to chat about this. I think this is a really important topic. All those junior designers getting stuck. You got to move forward. Just keep
Yeah,
moving forward. That's all that matters. Cool.
that's it.
All right, Cameron. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, thank you.